All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Visionality's Building Forward. We are joined today by two very special guest stars, Katie and Nico, and we're going to talk today about something that I'm really personally passionate about, and it's one of the cornerstones of the way that I've built my business and the decisions that I'm making in growing a firm. And it's about creating a safe space for our employees to step away for whatever kind of reason they need to step away. So it very often is maternity or paternity leave, but it could be to caretake someone in your family. It could be a sabbatical. It could be a mental health leave of absence. And so I've invited our two esteemed colleagues to lead this discussion. And so the two of them have this really interesting dynamic where Katie stepped away to have her second kiddo, and they actually hired Visionality to cover her job while she was out on maternity, and Nico was the project manager. And so we've got just this really interesting double-sided look at what that leave looked like, why it's important, but then also some lessons learned that we as a team have learned on being both sides of, the parent going out, but also the team covering, and some tough stories about when it hasn't gone so well. And so I want to turn it over to the two of you and, just kick it off. Tell me about what it was like, Katie, when you stepped back to have Luna.
Yeah, so Luna was a pandemic baby. So we were in the midst of 2020, which already was, chaos. So um yeah, it was probably a terrible time to have another child, but I guess there is no good time to really take a leave of absence. So um yeah, I had told my supervisor at the time, I'm pregnant, we need to plan for this. And she was so fantastic. And rather than saying, you can figure this out, just make a plan, she said, we are calling Visionality. And she called you guys and said, we need you to come in and help cover this leave because it's not something that our team at this point can reasonably cover. So that was the greatest decision that she could have made, because had it been up to me, I would have put a lot of things on hold that probably shouldn't have been put on hold. I would have put things on other people's plates on my team that they were already overloaded, and just tried to cobble something together to make it work. So I was really, really blessed that she knew that the need needed to come from bringing in extra hands. So um, yeah, that's kind of how we started. And I got a wonderful teammate, Nico, who hopped in, and we were really blessed that he was able to come in a month or two early. So we spent some time together. He learned who I was and what I did and my day-to-day actions and what was on the horizon, and really got to understand the ins and outs of my job, until I called him one day and I said, hey bud, guess what, it's go time. So yeah.
And
So that was fun.
that was on like a weekend, or it was either a weekend or a Friday. So there was no like sewing up any last minute sort of tasks or projects or what have you. It was come Monday morning. There's just this void that I stepped into, and I think I did okay. But
You did great.
a little disorienting, not gonna lie. But we all came out better for it. Um, Great. So should I take it from here, Em? I have
Take it
some
away,
questions.
Nico.
And Emily is a pro at this, and she actually took my first question, which is talking about the run up to Katie's leave and kind of what those different projects were that needed to get done. So um, we'll move on to the next question. So, Katie, talk about what you were feeling or what your biggest fear or worries were going into that leave, the one that ended or that started surreptitiously, I guess.
Yeah. So Luna was technically due in January, which from fundraising perspective was like a great time because we could get through the end of the year appeal. And I had a break between like the next big thing. And then she was, like all children, I'm here early, guess what? So it was mid-December, and unfortunately, we were still in the middle of the year-end appeal, which in 2020, budgets were all over the place. And I was just really fearful that we were not going to meet our expectation of the appeal. And then we were also on a fiscal year that ended in December. So I also had to wrap up my entire year and make sure goals were met, reports were ready, the board knew where we stood. And so walking away at that point was really scary because I didn't know, and I wasn't going to know until I got back. So that was really tough. And then unfortunately, as I was prepping, I think it was probably the beginning of December, we were told that our CEO actually was retiring and our director of marketing was moving on. So I was faced with, what am I going to come back to? Because I was the only development person, but our CEO did carry a lot of development weight. So I didn't know the situation I was going to come back to because I was losing my partner and my boss, and then I was also losing my partner in marketing, and fundraising and marketing work hand in hand a lot of times. So there was a lot of unknown, and I think that was another really wonderful moment of you guys being able to come in and help, because you could help facilitate all of the fundraising as well as stopgap some of that marketing and assist our interim CEO in making sure, we started off the year strong and just keep things on the tracks until I was able to come back. But it was definitely chaos on top of chaos that I was really fearful for.
Sure, absolutely. And you touched on it just a little bit. I'll have you expand on it just a little bit more. That kind of Visionality coming in made you feel secure and supported, and obviously selfishly, like, that's great, yay, because that was mostly my job. But what else made you feel most secure or supported at the prospect of being away for a few months?
So I think it was knowing that somebody was fulfilling the day-to-day operations, that I didn't need to check my email because my email had been transferred over to you, Nico. So I knew that if somebody needed something from me, they were going to get a response instead of being like, either somebody, I don't know what's going on, and Katie will get back to you in 3 months, or not a response at all. So being able to transition everything over to somebody who was super capable eased my mind, and it made it where I didn't have to feel like I needed to check my email. I didn't need to do these check-ins of how's it going? My anxiety is all over the place. I didn't feel that because we had spent so much time together, and I knew that you understood what was important, what needed to get done. And it took a lot off of my mind knowing how capable y'all were. But I think we had built a nice rapport, and then also the knowledge that I was going to continue working with you once I got back too, because it wasn't just you pass it back and that's it. It was, we were going to be partners for the rest of the year, because again, we were at a very chaotic staffing situation. So we needed to keep you on. And that just made it really nice to know that all of these projects that were going to influence the entirety of 2021 were not only in your hands and being formulated, but that we would then be able to work on them and execute the whole rest of the year. And it was going to be a really great time.
Yeah, I agree. It was a great time. So then I actually have 2 questions left, and I'm actually going to combine them into one because you're starting to get into this a little bit already. But describe the transition back to full-time work once you were officially back. kind of how either easy or not easy that was. And then to sum this portion all up, what was the biggest takeaway from this experience as it pertains to work and being away?
Yeah, so I think, well, let's be real, coming back to work after having a baby is really hard. I'm exhausted. I was not a functioning human being. I was not the person who left the position. So let's be real about that, because it is not a vacation. It is not a fun time off. I came back and I was tired and adjusting to a new normal. So being able to come back in with ease and understanding was so important, because it wasn't just this expectation of you handing me back all of the projects and the rest of my team saying, you know, let's go. It was, what do you need? Do you need to be here halftime? Do you need to, you know, scatter your days? Do you need to work different hours? Nico, you and Christiana were so fantastic that you were asking me constantly, what do you need? How are you feeling? Here's the project that we're all working on. What of this do you think that you can actually handle at this moment? What is important to you to handle? And what is it that we can take and do? So there was just so much grace on your part, and just an understanding that I think a lot of people don't really get, that, you know, a life change, it really is a ripple effect on everything. And so coming in easily was much better. And yeah, I think taking that into perspective of what have we learned overall, it's all about accommodation and being really graceful with yourself, and understanding that you also do not have to just run a million miles an hour once you get back, and that everybody is going to really be understanding of the situation, but it takes communication to get there. So yeah, I again, I think I've said this so many times, what should have been the hardest year of my career, with no leadership, no team members in my development department, and having a baby, that equals probably the hardest year of my career. But it wasn't. It ended up being the best year of my career, because I had Visionality as my teammate. We did some fantastic work, and we actually exceeded our annual goal by 25% that year in fundraising, which, coming out of a pandemic, is unheard of. So
Yeah, sure. And nothing else happened in 2020, 2021 that made things difficult. I sort of memory hold that. So that's all great to hear. So those are the questions that I had, and I believe this is where I turn it back over to you, Katie. Fewer questions from me, and actually, no, that's not true. Emily, you jump in.
Yeah, I wanna elaborate just a minute, Katie. You talked about accommodation, and there actually at the end of June was a really big piece, really big and important piece of legislation that went into effect, and it's called the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. And so what this means, and I'm not an attorney, ask your employment attorney how to implement this in your workplace, but employers of 15 employees or more are required to make reasonable accommodations for pregnant workers and people who are parents, mothers, when they're returning to work. So that could, and it's an expansion of the protections that were already implemented. And so things like a closer parking space, longer or different break schedule. And so that's great. And I'm really glad that that law came into effect to increase equity for returning mothers. And what we're talking about is just simply the right thing for employers to do to support and accommodate their working parents. And so, yes, I'm glad that that happened. And we're just doing the right thing right now, which is treating people with kindness and compassion and accommodation and recognizing that we're not machines, and that, working through or going through and then returning from a life-changing event changes, and you need a different set of tools to show up as your best self. So we as a team, led by Katie, have developed something that I'm really proud of, and it's our, ethical leave planning coverage. And so Katie, just take us through it, and I'm gonna pop in with some comments along the way. But essentially, we've developed a 6-month program for employers to ethically cover when someone goes out on a leave. It could be maternity, it could be disability, like I mentioned, it could be caretaking or sabbatical. But in this example, we're going to talk specifically about a pregnant mom heading out on leave and then returning to work.
Yeah, so this is, again, kind of modeled after my experience, because coming from being the person on leave and being that person within the nonprofit who has hired the external help, that was a great perspective to have. So month one, we really send over a planning document, which was something that I put together and I sent Nico, I think within the first week of us being together, that outlined day-to-day, weekly, monthly, and then miscellaneous things that may have come up within that allotted leave period that are due or expected to start, along with a list of contacts for different departments and who might handle things and preferred vendors. So really that planning document just kind of gets the wheels turning, and it gets things down on paper in the instance that leave needs to start early, because it's fantastic to have that just in case. So we start with that, where we're just kind of really learning the basics from the person who is going out on leave, as well as getting some buy-in from the rest of the team, making sure, because what I may have on my paper is not always completely reflective. So we need to make sure that the other employee doesn't say, I always actually need this from this person, so we need to add that to the list. So covering all those bases. And then we go into month two, where we begin a shadowing process. And that's where we really get ingrained into some of those tasks, making sure that our faces are seen as we start to integrate this transition. So during meetings, we will be there also to lend a set of ears, eyes, and hands as we're learning the new setup, navigation, scheduling, all of it. And again, it's that insurance that if baby or leave starts early, we have already started this work and we just carry on. And then, month 3 is where we're anticipating the leave to begin. So we keep that train on the tracks. We make sure projects do not fall off the radar, and just keep up the work. And then we roll into month 4, where we're still doing the work, but we've began conversations with the employer to actually identify these reasonable accommodations that might need to be made. Things like, if it is a mother coming back to work and you are in person, we got to talk about nursing. We got to talk about what comes with all of that, because you can't stick somebody in a bathroom. You have to make sure that they have a clean environment to pump in, that they can take the breaks that they need to do it, that they have a fridge to put the milk in to keep it safe and stored. There's anxiety challenges that come, and flexibility of scheduling that might need to be made. So Emily and I have really talked through, as employer who also just welcomed back a new mom on our team, what does that look like, and how can we make those thoughtful recommendations so the transition is nice and easy.
Well, and from thank you for bringing it up. We just welcomed an employee back who had a baby. Congratulations, Taryn. And I'm not a mother, and so I don't know what those kinds of things. I don't know what pumping takes. I don't know what nursing takes. And Katie, you really turned into an advocate for Taryn and educated me and the rest of our team on what we needed to do to support her. So it wasn't just, Taryn's going to need to pump or whatever, but it was every 2 or 3 hours, she needs 30 minutes off, and you need to give her a bottle of water. And then she needs to go somewhere that's not a bathroom with all of these requirements. And she's not allowed to come back until the bottle of water is finished. And so like, I believe that as an employer, it is our primary job to take care of our employees and make sure they have the tools to show up as their best selves. And this whole notion that, employees go away and have babies and come back and they don't need anything different is ridiculous. And so one of the things I'm most passionate about this program is that we're taking the lead on having these sometimes awkward conversations and an education process to the employer on what reasonable accommodation could look like for the different employees' needs. And again, some of these things are legal, literal legal requirements, like the nursing station cannot be in a bathroom. But also, this is just being decent to your employees and, giving them the tools they need to show up. So continue, Katie.
So yeah, we spend 1 month really kind of talking through all of the accommodations, and then the next month as we try to make those changes into a reality to prep for the return of the employee. So once they come back, which we're anticipating that being around month 6, some employers are very generous and will give more time for leave. Some may choose to, use their vacation days, their sick time, and push that leave a little bit longer. But for the purposes of this, we have just talked about our basic accommodation from the state. And so that is when we expect return. And when that employee transitions back, we're really going to be testing out all of those accommodations and finding out what's working, what's not. We're going to be able to be kind of a sounding board for both employer and employee, and navigate some of those conversations if adjustments need to be made, to really be supportive in all ways. And sometimes it means that the employee decides this is not an okay fit anymore, and I need to be part-time because I want to spend more time with my family. Or maybe they don't want to come back at all, because that's a reality as well. And that is where we call this the visionality insurance. We're already doing the job, so we'll just continue doing the job in the capacity that you need us to. And in that instance, while you find the next right fit, or as you need to make adjustments for someone to go from full-time to part-time and figure out the adjustments to that job and job description. So we're still doing the work and helping out in more of a reverse shadow situation, where the employee kind of pops in and gets the feelings back. And then as we transition into month 7, we as Visionality say we are here ongoing and as needed. So whether there's a large project on the horizon that you need a couple extra hands in, or something had popped up during leave that really needs our eyes on it, we are here to help. And we do not just walk away. We are your partner as you navigate your new normal. And that's really what helped me, I think, the most, was being able to not just felt left high and dry like a temp replacement could. It's really a nice, easy transition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for all your work in developing this program and your shared lived experience, so that we can just start to talk about what's real about maternity leave. When, as an employer, when you have an employee out on maternity leave in the state of California, the employer is no longer paying the wages because in California they file for the different programs and then their wages come from the state of California. So technically, when an employee is out on maternity leave, my payroll goes down. And having someone out on maternity leave should not be seen as a budget advantage. That shouldn't be a pro, because it is creating chaos in your organization. You're asking, especially on a small team, no one has extra time in their day. And so on a small team, just asking your colleagues to pick up your work and they don't get additional compensation while you're out. They also, I think too, it undermines the expertise and the experience of the outgoing employee. Like, we're all very specifically in our jobs for unique reasons. And so to just say like, oh yeah, so-and-so can do my job, no problem for 3 months, like that's not true. And so when an employee goes out on maternity, there is budget available to cover a consultant or additional staffing to keep the trains on the track and to give that employee support as they exit and come back.
Yeah,
So
I love this. It just
I
makes
love
me so
it too.
happy.
I love it too. So I want to actually open it up to anybody who's with us today for some lived experience on when you went out on maternity and came back, or on disability or a sabbatical or whatever. And yeah, if anyone has a story that they want to share of a time it went great or a time it was really tough, we're here to listen.
I'd just like to add that, hi, everybody, I'm Jeanette, and I am a senior project manager here with Visionality. And I'm a mom of a 23-year-old and a 29-year-old. And I was in a bathroom pumping, in a multi-stall bathroom. And I'm glad that we have moved ahead and we are being more respectful to moms, and that the thinking is more progressive now, so that an outgoing mom doesn't have to feel like, to keep up with everybody else, I need to do my job plus 100% more to cover during the next 3 months or so that you take off on maternity leave. So I think that it has been a long time coming, and I'm really happy to be part of a mini revolution that is really, respecting moms and in the workplace, and valuing their input and their contributions, and giving them the space to have their family and come back to work.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Ooh, Juliana.
I'm Juliana Ramirez with JR Bookkeeping, and we also assist nonprofits with their accounting needs. And we had an opportunity to assist, one of our client nonprofits with that transition. In our case, it was the executive director was just coming back from maternity leave, so we didn't assist them in the going, right, and the leave, during the leave. But coming back as a new executive director, she had just started and then went on maternity leave, so she had not had the opportunity to get acquainted with the system. And then coming back to trying to figure things out, we were able to assist them in that process of let's lay down, let's set the foundation and help you with, the things that you need to obviously care for your baby and for, what you need, and let's take that stress out. And so it's very helpful to, to hear, from Katie and Nico, because it really, helps to put that perspective out there and not forget about, that the human aspect of and the reality of the situation, right? So I know, again, I did have that experience of assisting and supporting somebody that had a completely new life and new career and new path and all of that. I'm, even though we're not a nonprofit, we do have two expectant mothers. And so this has been very, very helpful because we are going to have one leaving, in the next month, and then the other one right after. So it's two maternity leaves of, at once. But what you guys shared is so true. And I feel so confident because we want to support, right? And that's what we've been working on right now to set that, to let them leave, um, confident that the work is going to be taken care of because we've taken the time to look at what it is that, that it's needed, that they don't have to worry about when they are, at home. And of course, as they come back, that they're not going to come back to more,
Yeah.
or the stop. Yeah.
Yeah, Juliana, I'm curious, is there something that really surprised you or has surprised you in the prep for your two maternity leaves? Is there something you didn't expect?
Um, hmm. Definitely the fact that there were two. Not one, but two. And it was like we were obviously they are only a few weeks apart. So it was like one, that was a big surprise. Like of course we're always open, right, um to supporting the lives of our team members. But yeah, I think that one was a big one. And then also that there's it in two completely different roles. One's in our payroll department, which is a small area of our business, but then the other one was in our bookkeeping department. So it's two different roles. That I think was like the biggest surprise, like getting that that notice, like one right after the other, and the fact that they were like again into, which we're grateful, right? Because at least it's not the same department.
Well, and Juliana, like you and I can just be candid, like we both run small teams, and when you have an employee leave for any reason, part-time or permanently, it's really tough. And it is expensive to bring someone in and onboard and train them. And, it's hard and it's expensive. And that is our job as employers, is to support our employees and give them the tools to show up. And so I think a big first step is just acknowledging that employee transitions are hard no matter what they are and no matter how happy we are about them. And like, well, that's what you and I signed up for.
Yeah. And here's something I will add that I feel that has, made the that process a lot easier, at least for me, or somewhat of, peaceful. It's the fact that I'm reminded of the importance of having processes and systems in place, because when you have that, then it should be not super simple or super easy, but it does make a difference when somebody comes in and is able to follow that process. And it's been a huge investment on our part, or on my part, to invest in that. And at times it just, like you said, Emily, it's really expensive. And it's feel like, all the energy and the money is going into process and systems. And at that moment, when you're investing that money and that time and that energy, does not feel like you're doing the right thing. However, it pays off once you see that somebody else can come in and follow that. I think that I can say has been one of the greatest satisfactions I can share, right? An experience of like, at that moment when I was working on processes and systems, didn't feel like it was worth it because it's painful. But I'm sure Nico could, was able to appreciate coming into Katie's role and supporting that there was already, again, that foundation and those systems and processes. And while there's personalities and, ways of doing things that would be different, it's still that, again, foundation of processes and systems is what is key to being able to make that transition even better. So for those of us who sometimes feel like investing ahead of time on that piece. And that's why I'm also grateful and peaceful in this. I'm not freaking out of like somebody leaving, right? That's what I can share.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and it's oh, go ahead, Nico.
No, I was just gonna touch on the 2 month or the time before the actual leave starts. Like primarily it's for the person going on leave, but it's also for me or the person in my position as well to kind of figure out what we're sort of stepping into and getting to speak the language of the organization that we're stepping into, because we're sort of expected to be fluent in that language sort of right away. So anytime that we can get to pick up on things, learn how I need to interact with Juliana or what Katie expects from task X doing thing Y, like that extra time is super valuable for us too. So I just wanted to comment on that piece of what Juliana was talking about.
Well, and it is an investment, in fact, in sustainability and stability. And so yeah, like it's an investment. It takes time and energy, and it's not super fun. And you're revamping your job descriptions. You're getting more detail on what the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month key activities are for your organization, and that's all gonna help you like be more profitable in the future. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Juliana. Is there anyone else who Taryn?
Yeah, I'll go.
Taryn.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Taryn. I'm with the Viz team as well. I'm the one that they were referring to, just came back from leave. And I just think it's super important, like, and really crucial, honestly, for these small teams and small businesses that we're talking about. Because like if you have a bigger team and you have more coverage, or like maybe things like don't have to be as efficient all the time, but like when you're with this small team and everyone has such a large chunk, large percentage of what they're responsible for, having that coverage, at least like for me, was just like such a weight off my shoulders when I was leaving. Because and some people, like Katie was talking about how she was like, like I was gonna let things fall through the cracks or whatever, not fall through the cracks, but just like not prioritize certain things until when I got back. And for me, I was like, okay, like I'm ready to go on leave, like, but then I feel not like guilt's not the right word, but just like responsible for like how my team does when I'm gone. But like I'm still not checking my email, like I'm not checking and I'm not doing any work. Like I'm a millennial. We're all going to be working until we retire at age 96, like I'm going to take this time and not do anything. But I know that Nico is there. I know that Katie's there. I know that Emily's there and they're working. And I like worry about that as a human and as a part of the team. So just having that coverage, and for me, for my coverage plan, I mean, I'm super grateful to Emily because she like was on top of it before honestly I even thought about it. This was my first child. I'd never gone on any sort of extended leave before, and like come back to a job, extended leave is getting laid off or whatever it is. So she thought of it before I even could, and brought in Delaney, who's now on our team permanently. And just having her there, since I was previously a department of one. So not only did I have seamless coverage for when I was gone, I also gained an employee after I came back. Our company gained an employee. So my department increased by, Delaney wears all the hats too, but increased by 100%.
Well, and I think it's really important that this comes from management, that it comes from the top down. And I've been talking to a lot of moms about this and just how we have been conditioned, well, this is just my problem that I have to solve, and I have to do 80 hours a week to prep, to get everything ready, and I have to train up my other colleagues, and then they need to step up to cover everything. But it's not reasonable, and what I have observed is that very few expectant mothers feel comfortable advocating for themselves in this way. And it really needs to be top down to say, you are important, your skill set is unique. We can't put your work on hold because you are so important. And so we are going to bring in a talented team to cover you. It's not a temp agency, it's seasoned professionals. And that we value you as an employee, and we can't wait for you to come back. It's also not a replacement. You are so valued and so important that we want to ensure, you have every opportunity to come back and show up as your new true self, because you are so important to us. So I just haven't, it makes me sad, but I haven't seen the employees be in a position to really advocate for this. And so my hope is that we can start having these conversations and change the narrative and say, like, the way that we used to do it, like Jeanette pumping in a bathroom, is unacceptable. And we just need to change the way that maternity happens in the workplace, especially in small workplaces.
Yeah, completely. And like, I mean, I think I was prepared to, but I didn't even have to because you're so great and this is so great. But like what prepared me to was like my immediate previous job where like we had been trying to have a baby for a long time. And like, so I had talked to my previous position and they had an HR department. And it was a much bigger company, and basically went in and asked about their maternity leave policy, and they were like, we don't really have one. It's whatever's through the state. No help in navigating that at all. Through an actual HR department, no help in navigating that at all. No official policy that I could like look at or turn to. And so in talking to, and there were plenty of parents on that team. It was a large team, a ton of parents. And in talking to some of them, the struggles that they had, like you were talking about a fridge, there were fridges, but the mothers were told that they could not use them for express milk, and they had to bring their own cooler, which is like, it's not as cold. Like then you get into like your milk potentially like going bad, and then they weren't able to use the like closer parking spots, even though they were carpooling with a child, an adult child, but a child nonetheless. Lifting pool coolers, definitely heavy. But yeah, it's just like all these things that I talked to them about that they had to go through. That was like what prepared me, and it shouldn't be that way. It should be the opposite. Like I want someone to talk to me about my experience, and then that leaves them prepared to go talk to their employers. I don't want it to be a terrible experience. And I mean, I'm so fortunate to never have felt like stressed about it. People would ask me like, oh, like, what are you doing about work? And I'm like, oh, it's fine, it's covered. My company is great, so supportive.
Fine.
It was amazing.
And you touched on it too, like the paperwork is confusing. And so, we can't fill out anyone's paperwork for them, but I feel like even just acknowledging, like, this is confusing, and if this, then that. And like, we as a company have had many people go out on maternity and return, and I don't know the paperwork. I don't know how to do it. And thank goodness for Brianne, because she has that analytical brain. But I feel like even just feeling seen, where it's like, yeah, this paperwork is confusing. And yeah, like the wait time for the checks or it's a card, right, to start coming in is long. And so prepare for, a chunk of time where that money hasn't come in yet. And acknowledging that when you come back, you are a different person and you are dealing with a whole bunch of other stuff. Like 3 months leave feels like a long time. It is not. Your body is healing. You're living with a brand new tiny human, and you're different. And it's unreasonable to expect that people come back from a life-changing experience and just plug back in 40 hours a week. Here we go. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anyone else who wants to hop on and share what their experience was like, or what they wished would have happened, or where they've seen it go really well at a different organization? And if not, we can just wrap it up. Oh, Juliana, yes, ma'am.
You just made me remember about the time when I also, took medical leave, working for somebody else. My expectation was that I was going to be able to come back to work, like you mentioned, with a new human being in new situation in my life. I thought, oh, babies just sleep and eat. That's all, that's how it's going to be. That was with my first baby. That didn't happen. I thought I was going to be able to bring the baby to work because I was allowed to if I wanted to. I had just started in that phase of starting my own business. So it was a combination of clients and part-time jobs per se. And I'm like, I'll be able to bring the baby. I only brought the baby with me once because she was not the type of baby that would really like just sleep and eat. There was definitely not that. And I had not, quote unquote, planned for that. And so I had to make adjustments. I all of a sudden had to, ask my mom, who I thought I was not going to have to. Of course, I was, blessed to have my mom around, but, or just a caregiver for the baby. And so that again, I just remember that. And also, what you guys were talking about earlier of, this also reminds me of the importance of having, quote unquote, being clear on what an individual's, life plan is in a way, as far as like career plan, because, yes, you want to start a family, or you are growing your family, and that is going to impact the way that you also, um, go over your career, right? Like how you support your career, life as well. And so having that conversation and being able to support that, that plan also, it's also very important. So just not like, we're trying to have a baby. So knowing that then that can come at any time, because your team member, what their life plans are, their career path, and if it's like, I'm trying to have grow my family, but I cannot do it, for whatever reason, then just having that and being of that support as well, in all aspects of life, I think it's very important too.
Yeah, I agree with you. Katie, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I love that, Juliana. And I think unfortunately, as I'm having conversations with people too, is they're under the impression that they now cannot have a family because they are in a career that they cannot step away from, that they feel like they can't potentially ever take that amount of leave, whether that's for financial reasons or because things they feel like would crumble without having someone in that position. So part of kind of what Emily and I are doing is just making everybody aware too that the state is here to financially bridge that gap as well. So it is not up to your institution and whether or not that they have a financial plan for you, because everybody is able to have a family if that is what they want to do. It is supported by the state of California. And then there's organizations like VISIONALITY that is here to help bridge that gap, keep your position operating in your absence, and then welcome you back. So I really do think that the knowledge of being able to have a career and a family is something that can go hand in hand. It's just going to take some time to find the exact right formula of what works for each person, but it's always an option. And I don't think people should ever write that off because they think that they need to just stick with the career and that the road is always straight, but my gosh, it is curvy.
Well, and once again, why it needs to be top down to say your job is safe if you have a baby, and not just because it's legally protected, but because we are an organization that supports families. And so just making that super clear. I've heard so many stories of people who want to have babies, and like Taryn shared, that they're just like, we don't have a maternity plan, we don't know, like, go figure it out. And so that's not really encouraging to say, like, we're on your team and we're going to figure it out. And then I want to just mention too, like, great plans are great, they never go as planned. And so, every pregnancy is different, every baby is different, every journey is different. And so, every time we have an employee who shares that they're expecting, congratulations. And whatever we talk about is gonna change, and that's okay. And so we've got employees who are, I know I will come back. I know I will come back full time. I know. And it's like, I love that. Awesome. And when things change, let me know. And like, we're here committed to accommodate for you and whatever you decide you want your life to look like after new baby comes home. So it really does have to be flexible.
I do want to share that we do have a plan A, like you're just saying, and a plan B, because again, things can change, and we want to be, as prepared as we can be. Of course, things are like you very well already said, you can plan and everything, but they could change, and having a plan A, plan B, it feels, again, very, very good. And also knowing that, again, like Katie said, she had to leave earlier than expected, right? And there you go, that there's a change right there, that, if you're in that process of preparing, then you're going to be confident.
Yeah, Taryn's baby came a week early, and her spidey sense was going 2 weeks early. Thank you. Her spidey sense was going off. And she was like, I don't know, Emily, I just think we got to finish this to-do list this week. I don't know. And like, if I'm here next week, A+, but we just got to get through this to-do list. And guess who joined the world early? Baby Road.
Truly, I told Emily I'd stay through like a little longer than I probably wanted, so that I could do our end of year building forward, because it was going to be our whole team. And then, 2 weeks early. Worked till Friday. Water broke on Saturday, had the baby on Sunday.
Oops. Now is when Katie puts a plug in for pack your go bag.
Always. That is my number one recommendation to every mom. Pack it early, because you do not want your partner to have to guess what you need in the hospital. It is not fun for them, for anybody to have to either guess what you need, or to be the recipient of things that should not have been brought in, or things that were completely forgotten. So
it was great advice too, because everyone basically was out of town. So thank goodness it was packed. It was ready.
Yeah.
I also had the joy of, my first child was early. So the whole time I was just telling Nico, this is going to happen early. I just want you to know, like, we are most likely going to have exit plan early. Like, and I had kind of ramped him up for that the whole time. And so while it was still a surprise of like, this is it, I think in the back of his head, he always had that, like, that buffer of, it could really be any time at this point.
Yeah, so your go bag in this situation is having a coverage plan packed early.
Ooh. All right. Well, thank you all so much for your sharing and your vulnerability. And are there any final thoughts before we say goodbye and go on to do good work this week?
I think my final thoughts as we're kind of closing this out too is that, you know, a lot of organizations may be a little bit hesitant to bring someone in. Other staff members may feel that they can pick up the work and that they can help, and that, you know, someone else isn't really needed here. But truly, we're not here to replace anybody. We're not here to take over, give orders, change the plan. We are here to just be your extra set of hands, eyes, and ears, and really just do what's best for the organization to keep things moving and to help this employee in a chaotic moment in their life. So that those hesitancies, they do arise, and of course, like, we are here for that, and that's why we take the time to build the trust and build the team.
Yep. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Katie. Thank you so much, Nico. Thank you to everyone who shared. And let's just keep it moving. Have a good week, everyone.